This is Kate Baconsale. You're listening to Baconsale.
Music, video games, television, movies. Long ago, entertainment lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when television attacked. Only podcasts, master of all things pop culture, could stop it. But when the world needed it most, it vanished. Several years later, the internet and I discovered a new podcast named Baconsale. And although their movie knowledge is great, they have a lot to learn before they're ready to save iTunes.
True.
But I believe Baconsale can save podcasting.
Dun, 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 dun.
Wow, that was epic.
Previously
right there.
on Baconsale. Welcome to Baconsale. I'm Joel.
I'm Kent.
I'm Zach.
And thank you, Katara. We'll get to you one second.
Yes, we will.
But before we do, I'd like to thank you for listening to our last episode, our episode about non-World War movies.
There's a lot of qualifiers in there.
It was.
Coming up with that title was, took a minute.
More stress than it should have been. But we'd like to thank you for listening to that, and thank you for commenting as I rallied you to the call afterward at the end of the show to do. Thank you for that.
I still can't hear.
We have a couple comments here I'd like to read. One from Nicole D. Hale,
Nice.
member of the Bacon Council. She says, I love y'all, but you really need to watch Gone with the Wind again. For you to say it's not a war movie tells me you haven't seen it lately, as the Civil War is basically an uncredited character. The war is shown or mentioned about 80% of the show. A lot more relevant than some of the other movies mentioned. Gladiator's a great film, but I wouldn't say it's a good war film. It definitely would be on my Mount Rushmore, meaning Gone with the Wind.
Jeez, Nicole, take it easy.
She said it would be Gettysburg, The Alamo, Gone with the Wind, and Full Metal Jacket.
Which
would be
Alamo,
her.
though?
The Alamo.
There's a few of those.
The fact that we
I
didn't
remember
talk
that
about
one.
Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah. Well, there's...
That's a ball drop.
Mike Finley said, did you guys forget about Dr. Zhivago? If you're going to include Gone with the Wind. You also never mentioned Gettysburg or Gods and Generals. Gods and Generals would just be the last film to come out in theaters that had an intermission.
Gettysburg.
Which I replied, I said, most of us try to forget Dr. Zhivago.
And Gods and Generals. So long. So long.
Mark Peterson, he actually gave a kind of a history lesson on William Wallace and Robert the Bruce, which
That
was
was
quite
very cool.
Fascinating,
Yeah.
actually. Go check that on Facebook. He had a bit.
So you're not going to read the whole thing?
Not that one, but I did want to read this from Steve Christiansen.
Oh, no.
Okay.
He says, love the show. Spoilers ahead for the big
Wait. He's starting with love the show. That always
Love
means
the
there's
show.
an insult.
That means about to hit
no
you.
offense. He started with no offense, guys. No, he says, love the show. And I'm going to read this
With
kind of
all
how I
due
imagine him
respect.
saying it. I have two issues with the analysis. First, Kent Dunn, you know better.
Do I?
Gladiator is a fine film, but shouldn't have been in consideration because it's not a war movie. I could sense it in Kent's voice that he was stretching. Gladiator is clearly an action movie set in the arenas of Middle East and Rome. The dramatic wars are ancillary to the plot and used to introduce the characters in the first 15 minutes. By this standard, any film that has a war somewhere in the script is a, quote, war movie.
Oh, you mean Maximus the War General.
He said, doesn't
Okay.
The Notebook have a war mentioned in there somewhere? A fine war film. Joel Hilton should have called Kent out on this. Steve then goes on to say,
Jeez.
yeah. Second.
Love the show. Hate your guts.
Second, all three of you did a disservice to Nathaniel of the Yengeese, also known as Hawkeye, the adopted son of Chingachgook of the Mohican people. Last of the Mohicans was robbed, and Daniel Day-Lewis's mug should be up on Mount Rushmore. It checks every box of a cinematic war movie excellence Michael Mann could get on film. Script, performances, action, historically compelling, tremendous score, soaring moments and climax scenes, and especially cinematography. Pure cinematography using just film, lighting, and wonderful set pieces. The concluding battle, the ambush in the forest, was a thing of beauty. No filters, no CG, no manipulation. It's set off by a musket fire coming from the woods, then melee and rescue. No tricks of the camera, just brutal, realistic, dramatic, unflinching perfection. I'd put that scene up against anything in the movies you captured on Mount Rushmore. I love Braveheart, but it's sloppy. I love Spartacus, but it's overly long. I love 300, but it wouldn't exist without CGI. I love Glory. That's it. I love Glory. It's a cousin of Last Mohicans style, but most Mohicans is still a better film. It's cinematically beautiful with gripping, brutal, compelling action. That's all.
I want to go watch 300 now.
Yeah. You want to watch Gladiator right after?
Yeah.
No, it sounds really good, right?
It was really fun to see the passion come out from a lot of people, from a lot of different people.
I was also impressed with the just pure logic that clearly doesn't exist on the show all the time. Like all of that was like, that's a good point. I thought there was a bunch of really good ones brought up, and it really just seems so obvious when some of them were pointed out. So
And sometimes
the
we get-
comment section was fun this week.
It's true, because sometimes we get inside our own heads so much and into our idea of what we want the show to be that sometimes we get those blinders on and we don't see those ancillary
And we
movies.
will hear about it from
And that's-
all of you, and thank
But
you.
that's what the comments section is for. That's
Yes.
why we have social media so people can give their thoughts as well. So we do appreciate. Thank you. But that's not what we're talking about today. What are we talking about today, Zach?
I'm not sure what we're talking about today.
What are we talking about today, Chris?
Woohoo, we have a guest, everybody. Spoiler alert, you already heard.
Yeah.
But Chris is back.
Chris
Welcome
Anderson.
back, Chris.
Thank you for being here. We really do appreciate it. Chris, why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hello, and thank you for letting me come by.
Yes.
Yay. For the record, I do know what we're talking about. I just wanted Kris to talk.
I appreciate
Listen
that.
to my beautiful,
It's wonderful.
soaring tones.
Well, because the last time Chris was here was episode 198, Getting Ghibli with it, back in April of 2019.
Loved that show.
The April without a pandemic, as we call it.
Oh, better times.
April Ludgate?
What we did was we watched every single Studio Ghibli movie and then tried to cram that into one episode.
Yeah.
And we even have an uncut version on Patreon that you can go listen to.
It was
And-
so much show.
If you are interested in ever wanting to watch Ghibli movies, subscribe to HBO Max because that's going to be the official home of Studio
The Snyder-
Ghibli.
Wow.
Yeah, all the movies, right?
All of them.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But Chris was here last time and we read her all the questions, but we've since added a new question to the list.
Yes, we did.
So we're going to do a lightning round with this one question, Chris. Are you ready?
Oh, I don't know. It might be kind of
Answer as
hard.
quickly as possible. 10 things I hate about you or how to lose a guy in 10 days.
10 things I hate about you.
Nice.
Okay. Good night, everybody. This has been Baconsale.
Thank you, Chris.
You
Thank you
were-
for
you
joining
were-
the show.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
But
You were so excited.
last time we had Chris on the show, as we said, she had us watch all the Studio Ghibli movies and then we could talk about them, which was a daunting task. This time, Chris gave me a softball, and I was so happy that we could talk about what we're going to talk about today because we have talked about it before.
A lot,
On
actually.
Baconsale.
This is a television show, and we've done this type of show a lot. It's when we have a personal favorite, maybe one of the hosts on the show. We want to proselytize the message of a show to people that maybe haven't seen it yet.
Yes.
And that there's beauty to be found, very subjective at times. And that's why we have someone that is the main person promoting the show, the superfan, if you
As we
will.
call them, yeah.
And then there's someone who's right in the middle that knows enough about the show and maybe has seen a season or two. And then there's someone who's brand new or has not seen an episode at all.
We call these our testimony shows too,
Yes.
because it ends up being at the end where it's just like, I know that this is a great show
Brought me
and
so
you're
much
gonna like
happiness.
it. But Chris, why don't you just introduce the subject of what we are going to be discussing today?
We're going to be discussing Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Now, wait a minute. Do you mean Avatar, the James Cameron movie?
No.
Do you mean The Last Airbender, the M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Well, we can talk about it if you want.
No.
We're going to talk about
It's
it.
going to get brought up. We are talking, as Chris mentioned, Avatar: The Last Airbender, which was a Nickelodeon series that aired from
2005 to 2008.
Thank you, Kent. And it is one of those shows that was on Nickelodeon, seemed very much like a kid's show, but as we're going to discuss today, it is a kid's show, but it's so much more than that, is what I want to pitch it here. Is that, yes, you can watch this with your kids and they will enjoy it, but you as an adult will also enjoy it if you have no kids and just want to watch this on your own.
Like, Chris, when did you start watching this show?
I was a full-blown adult. I was in my 20s.
Did you watch it while it was live on the air?
I did.
You did, like episode by episode.
Episode by episode. I actually watched the premiere. It premiered on, I believe, New Year's Day.
So what drew you to the show? If it's a
Well-
brand new show, it's kind of hard to be like, oh, yeah, that's going to be a good one.
Well, at the time, my sister and my niece were living with us. And at the time, my niece was a child. And so we would watch Nicktoons together. So we would watch SpongeBob.
Joel hates it.
I just said it was overrated. I didn't say I hated it.
And that's why I'm on Team Kent.
There you go.
And
I know.
But we would watch Nicktoons. So whatever was on Nickelodeon at the time, we were watching. And then as the end of the year approached, they were starting to advertise a show called Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it had an anime look to it.
So
So
she
I'll-
said the A word.
Already lost
Sorry.
me. We're done.
Yeah,
I'm
we
done.
we lose a lot of people when we talk about anime.
Well, a lot of people have that filter up where it's just like they hear anime and they're automatically like, whoa, something I don't like.
Yeah. And obviously, we did a full show about anime last year.
Yes.
I don't remember what we said about when you actually started watching anime, though. Like, what age were you? Was this 2000s and the 90s?
Okay, weird story.
Yeah,
I'm
go
full
on.
of 'em.
We love weird stories.
Well, there was a show, again, on Nickelodeon. It was the early days of Nickelodeon that was called Grimm's Fairy Tales. They had licensed from Japan, dubbed into English, and I was 7 or 8, and so I didn't know that it was what we called at the time Japanimation. And so I just watched it because it was a cartoon, and I am addicted to cartoons like everybody in my generation.
Yes.
So I watched that, and then I gradually just stopped watching it because I grew out of the stories. And then I was like, ooh, I don't like Japanimation. So actually, I was kind of one of these anti-anime people. And I didn't start getting back into anime until Avatar: The Last Airbender because of the look.
So you're saying that Avatar: The Last Airbender kind of rekindled your love for anime?
It did.
Interesting.
Because it's an anime style done by a Western studio.
Right. So this is the thing is that I wanted to bring up is that a lot of people think it's anime. And well, okay, so some people claim this is anime and some, because it's
Purists
an
may not.
and then others are saying it's
technically not because
Yes.
it's not licensed from Japan. It's an American cartoon drawn by American artists
in the style.
who love anime.
But wouldn't you say that's a good gateway?
Absolutely.
Someone that knows.
Apparently it was.
Yes, yeah, like just as it was for you, but someone that knows how our storytelling goes, what is approachable for us, and then anime that doesn't get too insane because there's a lot of stuff in anime that's a little too crazy.
Yeah,
right?
and I've seen the gamut of weird anime.
Right, so it's a very good gateway, and it was for you.
Yes, it was.
So then watching the Avatar: Last Airbender, were you hooked from the beginning?
I was.
Okay. And your sister and niece as well, were they?
My sister was not, but my niece and I watched it. We watched it every week
Okay.
while they were living with us. And then when she got remarried, they moved out.
Because you had to
So-
wait week to week because this was airing
Yes, it
live.
was. It was airing, and so we would just watch it. Oh, hey, Avatar's on, and we would watch it, and then we would wait for the next week and next week, and then when she moved out, I continued watching it because I liked it at that point.
Yeah.
Nice. And then for me, I was actually working at a company called Top 10 Reviews. And I had these two coworkers, Dustin and Emily, who we'd always, I'd try and get them to watch movies that I liked. And they'd try to get me to watch stuff they liked. And all this stuff. And Dustin, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But a lot of stuff he gave me, I wasn't really big on. I was kind of like, yeah, it's silly. It's weird. And it was like movies that were fine, but none of them I really loved. But he would recommend like we
Like
just had
hipster choices?
Well, like we had different styles of comedy. Like I remember I gave him Fletch, and he did not find it funny at all. And I'm like, what? But and then he gave me something, and I was like, it's just different generations. But then he said, like him and this other girl, Emily, they came to me and they said, okay, we're not kidding around. You need to watch Avatar: Last Airbender. And I was like, I'm not really into anime. It's not really my thing. Not big on it. And they're like, just give it a chance. Just watch the first couple episodes. And I watched them, and I was like, oh, that was actually pretty fun. But it was a silly show. Like for the first couple episodes, it's like, it's penguin sledding and stuff like that, where it's like, kind of goofy, but still fun. And the thing I was surprised the most at the beginning was that it had a sense of humor. Like I didn't expect that, the kind of the sharp wit that this show had. And that pulled me in. And then it got really good, where I was involved with the characters. I cared about what was going on. And by the end of this series, I was completely and utterly hooked. Like it was the whole thing where I finished this series. I'm like, I need the next season. I need it quick, just because I needed to know what happened. And I ended up absolutely loving it. It became one of my favorite shows. And I came back to him and I said, you guys, you have given me a 5-star show.
Wow.
This is what I wanted to see. All that other crap was worth it because I got this.
Were they pretty proud?
They were.
Yeah.
And then we were able to talk about it. And I would actually come to them after episodes and I talked to them like, oh man, when this character happened, and they were getting a kick out of that. So then, of course, Kent.
So I start working with Joel at Top 10 Reviews, and we'd recommend a lot of movies to each other. And honestly, good recommendations all around. And so then when he recommended a cartoon, a Nickelodeon cartoon to me that I always was averse to, like I never wanted to watch this show.
It was the anime thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I was like,
Well, and Kent likes dark, depressing, gross stuff. And
dark, depressing, gross stuff.
But it has dark, depressing, not gross stuff, but dark and depressing it does get.
Yeah.
So.
But I knew this was a
Surprise.
stretch because I knew I could recommend, hey, Kent, this is a horror movie that, makes you feel horrible inside and want to,
It's
die.
like he could say it's like a meta horror film or a self-referential.
If I said
I
said this show will make you want to hate yourself and want to punch yourself in the face, he'd be like, I'll watch that.
I watch it 3
But I'm
times
like-
already.
But I'm like, Kent, this will uplift you and make you happy. He'll be like, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm like, it feels like cotton candy. So he recommended this. I waited a while to watch this one.
Yeah,
How long would you say?
6 years.
Not 6 years. It may have been 2 years.
About how long you took me to get the grandma's videos.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. You're still waiting, right? Mm-hmm. And so I started watching this, and much like Joel, I watched the first couple episodes, and I said, oh, wow, this is really lighthearted. I kind of hate it. And I think I told Joel, I'm going to keep watching because you asked me to, but does it get better? And he's like, just wait. It may take you till mid-season 1 or the end of the season, but you will get to a point where you will not stop watching this. And I said, okay, you don't know me.
Yeah.
We'll see about that. And he was right. As soon as I got to and I would say at the end of season 1, I said, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
And then it just got better from there because it got deeper, darker, more grim.
It's more serious.
That's what I said. Hey,
But-
if you
Yeah.
like dark and dramatic, it does eventually get there.
But the
Yes.
thing is, I looked at the rating, by the way, because, it's on TV, so it has a TV rating, and it's Y7, which is like kid show friendly.
I don't know. I read the parents' guide on this one.
Oh, no.
By the way, we haven't even
Yay.
talked about what the show's about.
Yes, we have.
Have we?
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, Avatar: Last Airbender.
Yeah, she mentioned it.
Did we
Well, what
give the
it's
whole
about.
synopsis for the show?
No.
We're just talking our experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I give the parents' guide
Zach,
right now?
we should clarify. Zach hasn't really seen the show, so
Yes.
he's here to clarify if we get too deep in the weeds to tell us to pull it back, and any concepts we throw out to let us know what.
But I'm not sure why this is Y7 because both genders are occasionally seen in their underwear / swim clothes in non-sexual content. Several female characters also wear outfits that expose their midriff.
That's
I know.
true.
Gasp.
Although it is implied that characters have died, a significant death is never directly shown, which I was surprised about.
That's just it. Like, they have these epic war scenes and these amazing like hand-to-hand combat battles, and people are injured, but it's never gory. It's never disturbed. Well, it's disturbing, but not like in a bad way.
It goes on to say viewers are led to believe that characters have committed genocide. It's a heavy show.
Very.
Yeah.
And yet it's not.
And yet it's not.
Because like the cool thing about this, okay, now we have to bring it back. Now I have to explain the show.
Yeah.
Well, should we ask Zach about it? About your
Yeah, Zach, what do you
history of the
know
show?
about it?
So
have you done
I-
any research for the show?
No, actually, you wouldn't let me.
Yes, and he obeyed me.
Baconsale.
I'm a Nickelodeon kid. So like I watched Nickelodeon all the time. I grew up with it. I watched all the Nicktoons and everything.
Okay, calm down, kid. You don't know the real Nickelodeon.
And
Like Eureka's Castle.
Nickelodeon.
I definitely saw that it was on. By the time it was coming out, I had sort of stopped watching as much,
A little aged out.
a little bit, and I really didn't kind of catch me. So similar to Kent, I thought it was a little bit off-putting. I had never really, I hadn't had a lot of experience with anime. I did watch the first couple seasons of Pokemon, and so I had some experience with some anime, but it just really didn't kind of catch me, and so I just kind of missed it, and it's been a kind of a hole in my pop culture knowledge for a long time. I wanted to watch it, but Joel wouldn't let me because he knew we were doing this show, and he wanted to keep me fresh.
In the last month. No, but
Stay
here's my
fresh,
question.
Zach.
Watch it for the last month.
Here's my
Stay
question.
fresh.
Like, have you had other people try to get you to watch this?
Yeah, some of my friends have said, I think you would like it. It's really enjoyable. I don't watch a ton of TV series just because it's a lot of investment.
It is.
But I am interested in this.
And you are
sure.
a Baconsale listener.
Yeah,
And so you've heard us talk about this show
Many
in
times.
high praise.
very.
And
high
it took
praise.
how long to get the show?
It did take a long time, but like I'm hoping, by the way, by the end of this episode that we'll at least tip you to start watching.
Okay, that's the goal.
Also, I want to clarify. Kent brought this up, and I brought it up, but I want to clarify too. Is that the first season? It's not like other shows like The Office or Parks and Rec or something like that, where it's like the first thing you just got to get through.
Yeah,
and
they're
then it gets
finding
good.
their legs.
It's not like that. Like they hit the ground running.
But there's a world to introduce.
Yeah, but it's like if I may compare it to Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, the first book is very lighthearted, very juvenile. Granted, it does start off with a murder, but I mean, it's kind of in the movies too. They're
It also
kind of,
is a story about 11-year-olds.
yeah, but it's like that's who it is. And then as the books progress, they get darker and more serious and more heavy. Same with Avatar: The Last Airbender. 3 seasons. The first season is kind of a little more lighthearted, but then it gets to more serious stuff. And by the end, it is kind of you're emotionally invested in what's going on.
And I would even say they're flat characters to begin with.
They are.
They are what you see.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the arcs that each of them go through is very complex.
Yes.
It's great.
It's a very traditional good versus evil story until it isn't. Where all of a sudden the bad guys have some good qualities and the good guys aren't all good. And so all of a sudden it becomes like, wow, this is really nuanced. Much more than I expect from a kid's show.
So what's the show really about?
Well, that's the thing.
Water.
I want to start from the very beginning and go, I know absolutely nothing. I
I'm
want
ready.
to hear how would you explain it in an elevator
Okay.
to somebody?
water,
No.
earth,
Fail.
fire,
Fail.
air.
So
Captain
Katara
Planet.
does the best. She does the best introduction to the show.
Well, no, that you're basically saying multipass at that point. You're
No.
looking for the fifth element
Can't do
or
you know
else
what water, earth, air, and fire is?
all you need is heart. Explain it in a way
Okay, in
that
a way.
sounds original because
let's
the
let Chris-
idea doesn't feel original.
Chris, give the elevator pitch in a nutshell. What is this
dear.
show about? Zach's coming to you and saying, "What's this show about?"
Why should I watch it?
The world is basically, if you were to look at it, seems like it's ancient China, and you have a character who was found in ice at the very beginning.
Okay. Mysterious.
How did he get in the ice? Nobody knows.
Secrets. Because
so-
really, well, you bring up a good thing. Is like the world. You said it feels like like an ancient China.
Yes.
One of my favorite things about this show is the world building because they create this universe where it has a history, it has a story. So there's these 4 tribes: water, earth, air, fire. They're all represented by an element, and then everything's going fine. And then all of a sudden, one of the nations, the Fire Nation, decides to attack the others. That's pretty much where we're at in the story.
Yeah, it starts kind of in the middle. It's
Yeah.
kind of confusing that way.
But then the thing about it is there's these characters called benders. And what benders are, think of them like Jedi, Zach. These
Not like Futurama?
No.
Okay.
No.
Severe alcoholics. Okay.
Yeah. But these benders, what they do is that they're able to kind of manipulate whatever element their tribe is. So earthbenders can manipulate the ground, waterbenders can manipulate the water, airbenders can manipulate the air, firebenders can shoot fire from their fists.
Do you learn this or are you born with these powers?
You're born with them.
Yes.
Okay, so they're like mutants from X-Men.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or,
and
or
not-
like Jedi.
Okay.
And not everybody in the nation possesses these powers.
No. It's basically like there's a bunch of regular people in the tribe, and then there's an occasional bender, like groups of benders.
Are they the protectors, the spokesman of the tribe?
No, not necessarily. They're just
Okay.
they have these abilities, and in theory, they use them to help their tribe. So, like waterbenders are creating igloos with ice, and earthbenders are creating houses with their moving up the earth. It's fantasy, but they do it in a way that it feels like, okay, this could really exist in this world. Like they set their ground rules, and they follow them so well.
So it's like temples in a Legend of Zelda game. There's
Yes.
the water temple. There's the fire temple.
We're going to go through so many weird fandoms at this point. Because I was just going to say Game of Thrones is very medieval, but there are actual dragons. Like it could be in medieval times, but there are fantastical dragons
Sure.
and creatures and zombies and that sort of thing. In this world, it feels like it could be ancient China, but people have special powers, and there are flying and little fantasy creatures around as well.
Okay.
Well, one of the things they do is they do try to step away from our world and make it a little more fantastical. So they'll usually hybrid a couple animals together just for fun, like a platypus bear or a flying sky bison.
Isn't a platypus inherently a hybrid animal?
So you have 3 animals in one.
hybrid. But they also are aware that they're doing it. And so, like, they kind of...
So when normal animals show up, it's kind of a shock. to
Yeah, they're
be
like, it's a bear.
Why is there a bear?
Is it just
like
a bear,
It's
a
not a
regular
platypus bear, or
No.
a duck bear.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
so-
Platypus bear. I want to
Hold on, guys. The guy got off the elevator. Okay.
I'm done on the elevator. Well, so what I'm hearing is we've got these 4 different. What did you call them?
Tribes.
they're
tribes.
nations.
Yeah,
Nations.
nations is probably better. Say the water tribe.
And do they coexisted?
Yes.
They coexisted peacefully.
Yes, generally speaking, like, well, okay.
And now they don't.
Well, they
Or
they,
did were they just very separate?
they lived in
very
harmony,
separate.
is what they say. So
But they
like,
were separate.
The water tribe is kind of on the poles. Think of them as like kind of the Inuit, Eskimo type people.
So
You
it was
have-
more like they were ignorant to each other.
Yes.
Maybe.
I mean,
They
they
knew of
knew
each
about
other,
But
each
they were
other,
just like,
but
we're
they-
going to leave each other
Yeah.
alone, and
They
we'll
kind
be
of
fine.
kept to their own
Okay.
kind.
Think of
Okay.
the airbenders being kind of like monks, these nomads that travel
Not
the
kind of
land.
like monks.
They were monks.
They were
Yes.
monks.
Then you have the earthbenders, who are kind of these.
Salt of the earth people.
Yes.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Hence the
Aha.
Earth Kingdom.
And then the Fire Nation, they're more kind of the Iron Age,
Hotheads.
industrial. Like they're able to kind of
Very
say
industrial.
They're
Hotheads. They are hotheads.
They are.
What are you talking
and
about?
there is a very much kind of a reference to fascism and even the Nazi Germany and the invasion and stuff like that. Like they're kind of alluding to these things without ever getting too serious or about. Like not really referencing it, but kind of making allusions. And if you can listen, you're like, oh, that's what they're going for there. By the way, this series created by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko.
Nice.
By the way, Brian Konietzko was the art director for Invader Zim. So if you're a fan of Invader Zim, you may like this one.
So there's 4 tribes of different elements, and there is one person that is the avatar at a time, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Why do you need that? Is that like the king of Tribeland?
King of Tribeland.
Yeah, like why is there an avatar if they're all just doing their own thing? Does someone need to go visit all of them to go see how they're doing? Like, what does an avatar even mean?
The avatar is the only person on the earth that can bend all 4 elements. So he can bend air, water, earth,
And by bend, we mean
fire.
control again. Like,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we're using those terms, but when we say bend, we're like, it's not bender like on Futurama.
And there's only one avatar?
There
Yes.
is only one avatar, and he is reborn like the Dalai Lama.
So when
and
he
like a
dies,
slayer.
when he dies,
In every generation,
a
there's
new
a
one.
slayer.
Is
So when he
chosen.
dies, there is a new avatar that
okay.
is born, and then what happens is, and he follows the cycle. So you'll have an avatar that is born like in the Fire Nation, and then when he dies, he then is born into the Air Nomads, and then when he dies, it's then the Water Tribe.
So can there be multiple? There can be multiple like individual benders.
But they can only bend one
They can only
element
bend their
at a
one
time.
element.
Yes. So like an earthbender can like he can like throw up a rock in front of him, all that. But then if water comes, he's just kind of like, oh well.
Which one can bend it like Beckham?
That's probably the airbenders because they can move the ball
Oh,
less
nice.
in the air.
So does the avatar, whoever they are, just keep everyone in check?
he
Kinda, sort of.
He's kind of like, I don't want to say the police because that's not really his role, but he's the peacekeeper.
Yes.
Oh,
That is a
okay.
very good way to put it.
The total
So-
balance of everything?
Yes,
so-
and so to keep the balance of all 4 elements, you have to have an avatar.
Which brings us to Aang.
Well, not quite yet because
Okay.
what happened was the Fire Nation, like I said, they got a little hot-headed.
That's Zach's joke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was Exo. But
make
the
jokes.
Fire Nation attacked the other nations, started attacking the other nations since they're like, we need the Avatar. But he was nowhere to be found. And the Fire Nation was able to run rampant and kind of start taking over their world, because the Avatar was missing. Mm-hmm. So for 100 years, the Fire Nation was kind of just being big bullies to all those around him.
No one to keep them in check.
Exactly. And everyone wondered, where did the Avatar go?
So are we getting into what the title is? Because the title has always confused me.
Please.
And I'm more confused now. So I'm learning what an avatar is. So were there no airbenders?
At the beginning of the series, correct.
Because
There
the
were
air could have
no
blown out the
airbenders.
fire.
It could
I know
have.
how candles work.
I think water is more successful.
Oh, that's probably true.
And this gets into a little bit into the story, which we're going to give some spoilers, but we're probably not going to go past season 1 type spoilers, and even then not too far. We want to keep it as basic as possible. But
Like Kent.
Pumpkin spice.
but with Aang, he is an airbender.
Yes.
They were tribes. They had these air temples that they would live in, and they'd kind of just travel around on their flying sky bison and just kind of go around and
Random info about a sky bison.
Sounds awesome.
please do.
So here's your Ghibli tie-in for the night, or the mini Ghibli tie-ins for the night.
Nice.
We'll take it.
Is they used the cat bus from My Neighbor Totoro as the model for a sky bison.
that makes so much sense.
So
Gotta love Appa.
Yeah.
and as Kris mentioned, they knew where the next avatar was going to appear. Like they knew the pattern of like where the next tribe, the next nation that was going to get the avatar.
So as soon as the
It was a Fire Nation avatar
passed,
and when he disappeared, they were like, okay, it's going to go to air next. So the Fire Nation actually wipes out.
I almost gave a spoiler.
Oh, the Fire Nation actually wipes out all of the airbenders.
It's messed up.
So the Air Nation is
Hold on.
gone.
Didn't say this in the parents' guide. That seems pretty dark for kids, right?
It
Well,
is.
that's the implied genocide?
Yeah, that's the implied genocide. You brought that
Yeah,
up.
that's true. The
So-
implied genocide. That's a bad
So
name
he
right
is
there.
the last. He is the last of his kind.
It's my favorite band, by the way.
Now, when we say he is, it's because, as Kris mentioned as well, on the first episode, these two water tribe people, brother and sister, they encounter this iceberg, and there's a person inside frozen in ice.
Jack.
And yes, it is Jack from Titanic, and they never let go. But
There was room on the door, you know.
they awaken. Then they awaken the being inside the ice, and it's Aang, this little 12-year-old boy.
Okay.
And he is an airbender, and he has been frozen in ice for 100 years, and he has no idea what happened, and he is the Avatar.
Oh,
So
like
he's-
he has been bequeathed that since his freezing.
He became.
He was the Avatar. He was born the Avatar.
Oh,
he
okay.
knew he was the
knew
Avatar.
the
Oh,
Avatar.
because that was like a yeah.
And that's the thing is, we don't want to get into why, how he ended up in the ice, but he basically was trapped for 100 years in that ice,
Okay.
and is finally let free. But he doesn't know everything that's happened since
He
he's
just
been in the ice.
thinks
he
took
thinks,
a nap.
Yeah, he thinks he got
basically.
frozen and woke up. Full Steve Rogers here.
If you've seen the cover or any picture of Aang, he's bald. He looks like a little monk child.
That's because he is a monk.
And so he has the arrow on his forehead as well.
Which means he's mastered airbending.
So is that
So
is
have
that
I.
what that means?
Yeah.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, it's a tattoo.
I got that reference.
It is a tattoo. That's not
Yeah.
something you're born with if
No.
you're the Avatar.
It's
or
part
an
of the-
airbender.
No, well, when you become a full-fledged airbender, you then earn your airbending tattoos.
Okay.
And so he
Yeah.
is kind of like the youngest ever to master airbending.
So that's
he's
kind of
a
how
pretty cool kid.
that's what kicks off the story. That's the inciting incident, as they say. Is they discover this boy who is the Avatar, who's technically 112 years old, but he's a kid, and it's just him learning about everything that happened and trying to achieve his full potential to stop the invasion.
He knows he's the Avatar.
Yes, he does.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
And, well, I was just going to say, and there's an interesting thing about Katara, who was one of the people who freed Aang from his icy slumber. She is also the only waterbender in the Southern Water Tribe.
Yeah.
Because
like,
the
okay.
Fire Nation killed all of the waterbenders
Come
in
on.
the Southern Water Tribe.
So everything you guys are explaining right now happened in the canonical 2010 movie, The Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan.
And I blame you guys. I refused to see this movie
Until?
until you guys were like, yeah, I think you need to see it. The only thing it had going for it is I did kind of like the way they stylized Aang's tattoos.
Yeah,
Okay.
with the little,
Well,
it's got a little
that's high
Hannah thing
praise.
going on there.
That's it.
No, they
Appa was creepy looking.
I've said this before on a Baconsale episode, but it's as if M. Night Shyamalan his kids liked the show, and he saw it and said, "I want to make a movie at that." And I swear, he walked into the studio executive office and said, "Hey, there's a show called Avatar: The Last Airbender. I want to do it and suck all the fun out of it. No fun whatsoever. That's how I want to do this movie." And they were like, "Greenlit."
Yeah, it's true.
And they changed a lot of it because Katara just kind of becomes set dressing. The acting is oh so wonderful.
Oh, it's
What are you talking about?
atrocious.
Jackson Rathbone's in it. Who played one of the guys from Twilight?
Yes.
And
Jasper.
it was all whitewashed unless you looked at all of the characters in the background. They were all Asian.
Right.
But your main characters were all white with the exception of the Fire Nation who were
It's
Indian.
It
and
does
that
seem weird
ticked
to me
people off.
how that movie actually failed because the first season of The Last Airbender, the actual TV show, feels like a slam dunk that you could put on film.
Right, but at the same time, they're condensing this whole big season into a 2-hour movie, and they just couldn't.
And
There's
I
so much
disagree.
story.
Do you feel like it's too complex?
And well, my thing is that with the martial arts that they use to bend looks better animated. Now I realize technically it was animated because it was CGI, but it just to me looked really weird because they're using like kung fu and tai chi moves,
Right.
But then you have water flying at them, and it's like, well, why didn't you just whack the guy with your fist? Whereas when it's animated as a cartoon,
Well,
It
funny you
just
should bring that up,
makes
Chris.
sense.
I actually did some studying, and I found out that each fighting style is unique in the cartoon. By the way, we're jumping back to the good here. I just want to.
Oh, you don't want me to distract you with M. Night Shyamalan?
yeah, can we just forget about it? It never happened.
But they said that each fighting style was unique to the bender. So when the animators did it, they specifically said, okay, when waterbenders are using martial arts, they're going to be doing Tai Chi.
And do you know why they chose that?
Because it's focused on the alignment, body structure, breath, and visualization. Very flowy.
And an interesting thing about Tai Chi is when you watch Katara or other waterbenders, they move very quickly. And most people think of Tai Chi being a very slow. You
Yeah.
can actually speed your Tai Chi up
Yeah.
and have it be an effective fighting
Like the
style.
old lady on PBS doing Tai Chi.
Yeah. If she wanted to speed up, she totally could and
By the
probably
way,
knock somebody out.
One time, years ago, when I was first watching this, actually, we were at this kind of a park area, and there was this pond there, and my daughter had wandered over there, and she was probably about, I want to say 5 or 6, and she was over there, and I look over, and she's kind of just like waving her arms back and forth by the pond, and I walked up to her and I said, "Hey, honey, what are you doing?" She says, "I'm water bending." And I was like, "Aw, he made me so proud."
My influence is working.
But okay, so waterbenders do Tai Chi. The earthbenders are actually doing Hungar. Well, Hungar. It's like hunger, but it's Hungar. and it's firmly rooted in stances of powerful strikes as a representation of the solidity of Earth. You get firebenders are doing Northern Shaolin, which uses strong arm and leg movements. And then
It's very dynamic.
And then airbenders, they use Ba Gua, which is uses dynamic circular movements and quick directional changes. So I wanted to say that they didn't just slap the show together. They were literally saying when this style of person moves, this is the style of martial arts they're going to use.
You know, that's nice. Thank you for the technical details. I think all that's really important is that if you have firepower, you get fireballs, fire bombs, fire daggers, a shield of fire, and heat redirection.
When they're fighting, it's so cool to see the firebenders kind of shoot fire from their hands. And it's not like...
Some can even control lightning.
That's cool.
And we're not saying, and the thing is, I want to say it's not like they I mean, sometimes they do, but it's not like they just hold out their hands like a flamethrower. Like they're actually doing martial arts moves, and when they end the move, flame will shoot out of their hand.
I know what nation Kent belongs
Or
to.
feet.
Which
Or
one?
feet.
Ooh, which one?
Or mouth.
I don't know.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah.
But
Not till
the
later.
mouth is
That's
very
rare.
specialized.
Yes. And then you get the earthbenders. And one of the reasons I think they're cool is like, for example, if you fell off a giant cliff, Zach, if Kent were
It's
to push
happens all the
if
time.
Kent were to push you off a giant cliff.
And I said, he's clumsy, guys. He fell.
But if he fell, if Kent pushed him off a cliff and you were an airbender, right before you get to the right before you landed on the ground, you could put a cushion of air right below you and just kind of float gently to the ground. So you
nice.
never have to worry from falling from heights.
And if you were
After I
an earthbender,
push you off
could
a cliff.
bend to the earth and not fall off the cliff.
That's true as well. Airbenders also on the offensive, they can do air blades and like cut things with air, which is pretty cool.
Aang
Tornadoes.
invented his own move, which was the air scooter, which is the ball,
A little
that
ball
he rides
on. And
Oh, that's cool.
Like in the opening credits, one of my favorite things, like I said, it didn't take itself too seriously because there's a part when he's riding around on a little air ball and all of a sudden he just slams into a statue when it talks about how kind of he's not exactly the avatar they want him to be. He's not
because
professional.
At the time, even though he knew he was the avatar, he could only airbend. He couldn't waterbend. He couldn't firebend. He couldn't.
And that's part of the
earthbend.
show is him having to learn these other bending.
Okay, that's a question because there's 3 seasons of this show, and they're called books.
Yes.
Instead of season 1, 2,
About
and 3.
20, I think it's 20 episodes in each season. I think.
Do they call it book because it's based on a book?
It is not based on a book.
It's not based on anything.
No.
No,
They
came-
just kind of make it more classy.
Well, I do want to bring this up because I thought it was funny. Apparently, the series was conceived in early 2001 when one of the creators took an old sketch of a balding middle-aged man and imagined the man as a child. He drew the character herding bison in the sky and showed his sketch to his friend, the other creator, who was watching a documentary about explorers trapped at the South Pole. And they just kind of started
Perfect
talking
marriage
together
right
about,
there.
hey, what about if there's an air guy flying along? He's trying to help these water people. Maybe there's some fire people like oppressing them. Like they kind of just threw it together.
Okay.
And they pitched it to Nickelodeon, and it became this amazing story.
And guess what? I have a copy of that picture.
You do?
Do you?
So, Chris, you were saying he has to learn the other powers because he gets out of the ice and he already knows how to bend air.
He mastered airbending.
He's mastered it, so he doesn't have
But
to
as the
learn it.
avatar, you don't already have those skills of fire, earth, or water.
No.
Okay, so
you have your inherent
you have the
one?
potential to do it, but you don't
Okay.
know how to yet.
So is it like a journey show? Does he need to learn those as he goes? Is that what we see in books 1, 2, and 3?
Yes.
Yes. But you are also seeing the wider story of not only Aang trying to learn these skills, but he has to learn them in a certain amount of time.
Yes.
He
there's
doesn't
a
have
time.
Why?
the tens of years to learn them like all
We don't want to
other.
give spoilers, but he basically has to stop bad things from happening.
But who are the bad things? Because we haven't talked at all about the villains of this show.
we
There-
did Fire Nation.
The Fire Nation.
We had a
who
whole
wiped
conversation
out-
about genocide, Kent. Where were you?
Where's Zuko, guys? Where's Zuko?
we haven't got to even Sokka or Katara yet.
Okay, go on.
Basically, the story is Aang learning to learn all of these other things, stop
Yeah.
the Fire Nation, and then, of course, you have all of the other side stories, which is what is contained in all of the books. So
Yes.
book 1 is called Water.
Yeah.
So it's all about Aang's journey from the South Pole to the North Pole to learn waterbending because
meet
Katara
Santa.
doesn't know how to waterbend either.
Yeah.
She can kind of sort of do it and wants to learn how to waterbend, but can't.
She's an amateur at it.
And so Sokka, her brother, who was also with Katara when Aang popped out of his iceberg, joins them and they leave the Southern Water Tribe to go to the Northern Water Tribe to learn waterbending.
Okay. And he's the comic relief, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Sokka is the comic relief.
Yeah, yes.
Well, and all of them have their moments, but it's not like Marvel Kent, where everyone is a comedian and everyone tells the same type
I
of
know
jokes.
this. Yeah.
Like they all have their different styles of humor. Like Sokka is very much the teenage boy type who's always hungry, kind of goofy around girls.
He's one that like falls in love with everyone they meet.
Yeah.
Right?
And he's also the one who's very overconfident in his abilities, and yet he doesn't have bending powers.
Oh.
And so he kind of, that kind of weighs on him. Aang is obviously kind of the naive fish out of water, as it were, kind of trying to figure out what life is like 100 years after he was alive. Katara, she's 14-year-old waterbender. She is very maternal, kind of the mom of the group. It keeps the other guys in line and tells them what to do. And then you have
Much to their chagrin.
but she's also hilarious. She has some very good moments. I love Katara. And then Zuko, and we haven't talked about him as much.
And that's where I was
because
going.
He is the exiled prince of the Fire Nation.
So is he part of the group? Is he a friend?
He's the
No.
antagonist.
Okay, there we are.
He's the son of the Fire Lord, of the leader of the Fire Nation, but he was banished. He was exiled, and also severely burned on his face by his
By
dad.
his father.
Oh, great.
And now his sole mission is to find the Avatar wherever it may be, because it hasn't arrived again, and people are like waiting for it to appear. His job is to find the Avatar and bring it back to his dad. So he's the Tommy Lee Jones to the Harrison Ford in The Fugitive.
Okay. So there's all the countdown you're talking about. Like you need to learn these skills by a certain time. The countdown is to stop these evil powers. And he's also being tracked at the same time.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the main crux of the entire series.
He's being hunted down by Zuko,
Right.
And he has to try to learn all these things while not getting caught. So that's kind
Okay.
of the fun part of it.
Yeah.
But then you have also characters like Appa, who is the sky bison, and he's this big, fluffy, just animal. He's just
Cat
an
mouse.
animal, but he's like kind of one of the things. You know how Disney movies, they give him a little bit of personality.
Yeah.
He's a lot like that, where he has these little things where it's funny. Appa's just funny. I've actually named our minivan is actually named Appa, so I can ride an Appa anytime I want.
Yip yip. Is yip yip a
Yep,
thing?
yep. That's how.
Yip Yip is how they get Appa off the ground.
Oh.
Yeah, and then you have Momo, who is a little kind of what is he? I can't remember.
He's a
a lemur.
lemur.
He's a flying lemur.
He's like a lemur bat. And
Yeah.
in a later show, they call him a lemur.
Yeah, but he's like the little buddy. Like basically, picture Appa and Momo as kind of the R2D2 C3PO types, where they're kind of there. It's just kind of they're there for comic relief, but they're also companions.
And he's named Momo because Momo is the word for peach in Japanese. And they give Momo peaches when they find him, because he's kind of one of the last things that's found at one of the air temples.
Yeah.
And so he's eating peaches, and so they're like, we're going to call you Momo because
Oh,
he's
that's
eating
adorbs.
peaches.
Yeah. Now, I do want to bring up, lest you think that it's just Chris and I geeking out on the show, Zach, that Avatar: The Last Airbender was the highest rated animated television series in its demographic when it premiered.
What's the demographic?
Kids.
Well, that's the thing. Was it just kids watching, or were parents watching with them?
But it had
Who
an-
do you think has adopted this show more now?
Well, that's just it. So one of the reasons we're talking about this now, that Chris wanted to talk about this, is that it just got released on Netflix again. And I'm seeing people start to discover Avatar: The Last Airbender online. They're like doing memes and stuff like that. People are starting to enjoy it and talk about it again. And it's fun because they're adults. These are adults who are finding the show for the first time. Whereas I don't know. I didn't watch it as a kid. And so I don't know what age they were. But they had an average of 3.1 million viewers watched each new episode, and 5.6 million viewers for the highest rated episodes. Like, there's a lot of people watching this. This
Wow.
also has the distinction of having 100% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics and 99% from the audience.
Yeah.
So people that watch
Well,
this
I think
enjoy it.
as we've proven, like, yes, it's made for kids. Yes, the content is very kid friendly. But here are a whole bunch of adults that have loved the show. Like, even me, who's very cynical, and I like, a little blood and gore in my shows sometimes, and
So let me
darkness.
guess, the third book is your favorite?
The third book is awesome.
It is
Fire.
awesome.
It feels very heavy, very,
it's
very dark.
Well, with underlying themes of war, genocide, oppression, death, loss, balance, destiny, and Asian philosophy, there's a lot to jump into, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot. And that's the thing is, it's not just American audiences that like it either. This has been syndicated to more than 105 countries, and it ranked first in countries such as Germany, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Colombia. Like, this is kind of a universal, everyone can watch this, everyone can enjoy type of show.
Do we know anyone in the cast, the voice cast?
The ones you'd probably know, if you've seen Arrested Development and you know Anne, her?
Yeah, Mae Whitman.
Or Egg, as they call her. Mae Whitman. She was also in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and she's in...
Voice of Tinkerbell as well.
She's in a TV show right now with Christina Hendricks.
Yeah, she
Wasn't
is.
she also in Hope Floats?
I don't know.
Probably.
But Mae Whitman, you may recognize her. She plays the voice of Katara, the sister from the Water Tribe. Also, Zuko is voiced by Dante Brasco, who's Rufio from Hook.
Dante Bosco?
Bosco, sorry.
It's not Donnie Brasco, the
Donnie
movie.
Brasco. I think that's what my brain was trying to
With
do.
Al
I think that's
Pacino.
exactly what my brain was trying
Rufio,
to do.
getting work again. Well, 12 years ago.
Yeah. So, but that's just
He
it. It's
still
like-
does work. He does a lot of voiceover.
Oh, does he?
He's
That's
a
cool.
big-time voice actor.
The kid that did Aang, actually, I don't know if he has any other credits. I think he kind of just did this show and then was like, I'm good. As far
And
as I know.
then Sokka was voiced by an actor by the name of Jack DeSena. I don't know if he's done anything recently, but if you did watch Nickelodeon at the time, there was a show called All That that he was a cast member on.
I know that guy.
Yeah. Oh, and the Fire Lord was the
big
bad
bad?
guy. He's actually voiced by Mark Hamill. Who
Oh, of course.
He was in some Star movie. Or no, he was in a Batman show.
Batman the animated series.
Yeah. No, Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is in this show.
The Christmas special.
Also, you do have a lot of times that they will utilize Asian actors as well, because you have Uncle Iroh, who we haven't talked about, was voiced by an actor by the name of Mako, and he was like a Japanese actor.
Very popular.
Very
Japanese actor.
Well, so
popular
who's
in
Uncle
Japan.
Iroh then?
Uncle Iroh is Zuko's uncle, who is kind of banished with him. Not necessarily banished, but he wants to take care of Zuko while he is in exile.
Yeah, so he's a Fire Nation guy as well. He's
come out of retirement because he retired after losing his son
yes.
in the war.
And so you have Zuko, who's kind of this hothead, who I keep saying that, but he just has very, very emotional, very not in control of his temper. Uncle Iroh is there to kind of be more logical and reasonable. So he's like, I'm gonna push this ship to the limits, and Uncle Iroh's there to be like, no, let's be calm. We'll find him eventually.
Okay. So even though the Fire Nation is seen as evil, there's still some good people. in it.
Absolutely.
Yes, and that's later on as it gets on. Like it starts off with the Fire Nation is bad, everyone else is good. But then you realize there's some jerks in the Earth Nation. There's some good people in the Fire Nation. In fact, there's actually kind of an interesting episode where they go to the Fire Nation later on down the seasons, and they see kind of how they're indoctrinating the children as to why the Fire Nation is better than the other nations.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like these kids don't really have any other thought of why they're doing what they're doing other than, oh, this is the way it is. It's just kind of, it's a commentary on just, how you could be trained to think the way the Fire Nation thinks.
Right.
Another actor, to tie in last week's show to this week, there is a character, Admiral Zhao, who was voiced by Jeremy Isaacs. And his character was modeled after the character from The Patriot.
Oh, Jason
And
Isaacs.
Jason,
Yeah, yeah,
Jeremy
yeah.
Isaacs.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I knew who you were talking about. I just kind of assumed, yeah.
I had an idiot moment. Sorry.
No.
So Jason Isaacs, Admiral Zhao, was actually based on his character in The Patriot.
Oh, who is so evil?
Yeah.
yes.
that's great.
And they were like, well, we want a character and a voice actor like him.
So he voices
And he voices
the
Jason,
character
yes.
that is based off his character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
They
awesome.
were able to get him.
Well, and they have I remember there's Robert Patrick from T-1000 from Terminator.
Right.
Oh, he shows up in it too.
He comes in for a bit, and they have these voices where every now and then you're just like, I know that voice.
James Hong.
Yeah. And so they throw these in, and it's kind of like, oh, cool. I have no idea they were in that.
They did utilize a very wide Asian cast for voices.
Okay.
Which is, I think, very cool.
Yeah. It's just fun to watch. Honestly, just all these different things that pop up, you kind of just you start to enjoy it more because you start to know more about it.
Do your standards drop for the silliness? Because I want to know. We've talked about lemur monkeys, lemus, and water
It's a
bison.
lemur bat, by the way.
Okay, lemur bat. That's how the coronavirus started. Yes,
No.
but we've talked about water bison and
Flying bison, not water bison.
flying bison. Exactly.
Bending bison.
Sounds a bit silly. Like the guy left the elevator a while ago. But what is the
Come back.
What is the silliest part of this show? What is something? Because we've talked about this with Doctor Who and with
Right.
Mystery Science Theater and Galvan and Supernatural, and there are things to drive people away. There are reasons people wouldn't watch this show. Mm-hmm. We can't just say watch this show, you'll love it. What is the one reason or two reasons that people may not like it?
Well, if you watched The Last Airbender as your experience for that, so you first saw the M. Night Shyamalan movie, you'd be like, this is crap. I have no desire to see this. So that would be your first turn off right there.
Because from what I've seen this show one time, and that movie does follow, quote unquote, the first season of this show. And so it's almost like a comprehensive look at the season. And you're like, maybe you feel like it's a waste of time to watch 20 episodes of a crappy movie you saw once.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that kind of brings it down.
And it is the first season is very silly. I will admit that.
Like too silly?
Well, like, okay, so for example,
It has its moments.
I'll just get this. I kind of referenced it before, but I'll give you the full example. So in the first episode, Katara and Sokka find Aang, and they get him out of the ice, and he's unconscious. And they're like, kind of like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then he pops up and wakes up and says, hey, you want to go penguin sledding?
Actually, he first falls in love with Katara and then wants to go penguin sledding.
Yeah, so he just like goo eyes. And then he says, want to go penguin sledding? And then they jump on penguins and start sledding down the hill together and just kind of laughing, and he's goofing around and all that. And I was like, this feels very kind of anime to me, like just a little too surreal. Like I was kind of like, I don't know about this. It does that a little bit where he's just a goofy kid. Like, especially near the beginning, he's a 12-year-old boy who just wants to have fun and honestly didn't want the responsibility of being the Avatar.
It sounds like, if I haven't seen the show, and Zach, you haven't seen the show yet.
I haven't.
It sounds like
It looks like he's trying to watch it right now.
if you're sitting down, you have some time to binge a TV show, and yes, these are only 23 minutes per episode, and there's 20 episodes per season, so it's fairly easy,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Oh, super digestible.
But if you're watching this on your own as an adult and it's just overly silly for almost a full season, isn't that too much to stomach?
No, because what happens is you do get bits of drama.
Exactly.
You have the episode where they go
Exactly.
to the Southern Air Temple, where Aang sees the skeleton
remains.
of his mentor, basically, and
Yeah.
basically the man that he looked to as a father, because in the Air Nomads they kind of were raised communally, so he didn't live with his mom and dad. He just lived with all of the monks, and he saw his mentor and surrogate father dead.
But
He saw the remains of all of them.
I wouldn't say that it's silly for the first season. I would say that it's like maybe
It has like episodes
60% silly, 40% drama, and then as the series goes on, it
switches.
shifts where it's more like kind of more 70% drama, 30%. I'm doing math right now. 30%
Bravo.
silly.
And then the final season, it's like 10% silly,
Right.
90% drama.
Yeah.
But you are asking people to invest.
Yes.
And granted, it's an animated series, short episodes, but there is an investment.
But
Yeah.
you
Meaning
get
it will
hooked.
pay
Yes.
off. Meaning-
absolutely.
But still, it's like sit through this, and it's not as bad as a lot of TV shows where we say it gets better after the first season.
Well, but here's-
it finds its feet.
I would say it takes about 6 episodes to like fully hook you.
I don't
Into
know. Like,
most shows.
I enjoyed it.
No,
from
in
the
this
beginning.
one.
In this one, okay.
I
In
enjoyed
my
it almost
opinion.
from the beginning, but I will admit that I kind of got hooked probably about halfway through the first season.
Okay.
By the way, I just looked it up because I wanted to know if you binge watched every episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. The series consists of 61 episodes. So 61 20-minute episodes. So if you were to binge watch every episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, you could do it in just over a day. One day, 6
Nonstop?
hours, 30 minutes.
Okay.
Challenge
So-
accepted.
But that's the thing. Like, you think about all these other shows and like to watch the entire series.
Like, truth be told, Joel, you have told me to watch Better Call Saul so many times, and I know it's only 12 episodes per season,
Yeah,
roundabout.
they're short seasons.
But there are 5 seasons I need to catch up on, and
That's
those are
daunting.
about 45 minutes.
No, and I asked you to watch Twin Peaks, which is like one season.
It's 2,
one and a half that you need to watch. You haven't done that either.
And I feel like the investment is too much. So on this, it doesn't seem like you guys are asking for the world.
No.
It's just they may need to sit through some spontaneity, some silliness, a cartoon, like a straight up cartoon
But
for a
don't
while.
we all need silliness?
I think we do.
especially
Fair enough.
in this day and age.
It's true.
But my advocacy here is that this is a show that you can watch as a family and not worry about content and not worry about being entertained. Because
Not worry about not being entertained.
Well, what do you mean?
I was
Not being-
conf-
yeah,
the way
yeah.
you worded
So-
that was
sorry.
confusing.
But I mean, like my kids want to watch some stuff, and I'm like, I don't really want to watch that. I'm kind of bored with that. And then stuff I want to watch, I'm like, this is great. And a part will come up, and I'm like, oh, I hope my kids didn't walk by. So today I had this. I turned this on in the background as I was working. Just had it playing in the background the whole first season. I watched half of the first season. I left for a second to go downstairs. I want to walk with my wife real quick, just kind of at lunch. Just kind of walked around the block with her. I came back, and all my kids were up in my bedroom watching the show play on the TV. All well, not all of them. They couldn't all fit in one bed. But a lot of them were sitting there on the bed just watching the show, and they were like enamored with them. I'm like, get out. I got to go back to work. Yeah. They're like, oh, Dad, we want to watch it. Because it is a show that you can watch all together and all enjoy together.
Okay. And that's what I wonder as well.
And then explain genocide to your kids.
Somehow.
What is the timeline of the show? Like, is it over the course of years, months, days,
Months.
weeks? Months?
Yeah.
Months.
Oh, so it's fairly short.
It's fairly short. Like
He
the timeline.
has like a season
Okay.
to learn the other 3, master them all, and take out the Fire Lord in like 3 months.
Oof.
But the thing about it too is that there's the overarching story, but then there's these little mini stories in each episode, and they're so much fun. Like one of my favorites is when they're just trying to get through this tunnel. They're just trying to get from point A to point B, and they end up getting separated from each other and having to find their way through this tunnel, this secret tunnel, and and it's just one of those things where it's the interaction between the characters that makes it so good, because at that point you know who these characters are. So when one character says something that you know is going to bother another character, you're like, that's going to get under their skin. I know it now. And I mean, there was another episode recently where these two different tribes, I shouldn't say tribes, but groups of people, they hated each other because of something their ancestors did way back when, and they've hated each other ever since then. And the Avatar, they know him as the Avatar. The Avatar is there, and his job, what he's trying to do, is make these people just put aside your differences and work together, for crying out loud.
Oh, like Frozen 2.
No.
Which basically stole the story. She's a waterbender.
She's a little bit of a waterbender, yes.
Yes.
Elsa is, yeah.
Yeah.
But then she's also the fifth element, so multipass.
Yeah.
So we've talked about what the other shows we've recommended, the 3 episodes to start with. And sometimes it's the beginning. Sometimes it's scattered episodes throughout that best represent the show. Where would you guys tell people to start with this show if they're going to watch and stay watching? Like, what should they watch to grab them?
Well, clearly the first 2, I think, are the most important, because that gives you who Aang is and kind of who Zuko is. You know, it gives you the basic who these characters are and what's going on in the world.
I do feel like, Kent, like I would love to be able to recommend certain episodes. Like there's this one in the swamp that I really enjoy.
The swamp is great.
When they're
That's
trying
in
to
season
find
2.
his earthbending companion. The one in the tunnel I mentioned before.
Right.
But the problem is if you drop anywhere in the middle of the series, you're going to have so many kind of dangling loose ends and question marks that it's probably not going to be as enjoyable. Yes.
Well, that goes to one of my questions I'm having is really on the show structure of the episodes and then how they go with one another. For example, a couple of, Joel, I think you started watching the Clone Wars, the Star Wars TV show.
Yeah.
That really doesn't have much of an arc. You can kind of come and go as you please. This sounds like a show that it is one overarching storyline that you need to follow through.
Well, it's because it builds on itself too. Like you learn something in one episode, and then a couple episodes later they reference it, and then they'll reference it again later down the road. So as it goes, the story builds, the characters become deeper, and you start to emotionally invest more in the story.
So I'm going to recommend that people watch the first 2 episodes of this series, and it is a bit silly, but at least you find out how it all begins for the story. But you add in a later episode called Zuko Alone, and this is the Just Zuko story.
Is this on the beach?
No, it's where he's in exile from exile.
That's right.
And it's
So he's basically on the lam. He's in the Earth Kingdom and is by himself. He basically tells his uncle, I don't need you. I'm going to go by myself. And his uncle is like, I can't stop you. Okay, go. Here's some stuff, because his uncle still cares for him, and lets him go to learn his lesson, basically.
And it goes a little bit more into his history. And so I think that is an episode where if you watch the whole thing through, it's kind of a payoff episode for the character. But it will show you, hey, if you stay watching this show, you're going to get to episodes like this. And it is almost a standalone episode for me. And so I think it will show you, hey, it's going to get really good like this. And now you may like Zuko more from the very get-go.
But it's not a huge time commitment. Like if you watch, the 2 first episodes of Avatar: Last Airbender, you're investing less time than you would in one episode of, say, Game of Thrones or one episode of Breaking Bad. Like they're short, little clippy episodes, and you can hop through them very quick. Because, like Kris said, especially if you're watching on Netflix, cuts out the closing credits, cuts out the opening credits and the recap, and you're kind of like a 20-minute episode.
All right, so if this was so popular back when it was on, why did they end it?
Because they were smart.
They had a story to tell, and when they were done with the story, they were done with the story.
So it ended
Okay.
after 3 seasons.
Yeah.
61 episodes.
This wasn't because of ratings.
That's exactly how many they wanted to
The
do.
highest ratings came at the end. Like they were building the whole time.
I mean, that's commendable.
That's what they did.
But they went to Nickelodeon and said, this is the story we want to tell. And this is how much we want to do. And that's all we're going to do.
And one of my favorite things about it, Kent, is that there is a kind of a wrap up ending. Like they're like, it didn't leave you hanging. It wasn't like they got canceled. Like I said, they had an arc. They had a goal they wanted to go to. And I was watching the ending going, how are they going to do this? Because there is kind of an impossible conflict at the end where it's like, what is that? Immovable object, unstoppable force.
Yes. And immovable.
And you're like, what's going to happen? How are they going to resolve this? And I love how this show constantly finds clever solutions to unique problems. This isn't like the thing where you can kind of figure out, oh, this is what they're going to do to kind of make everyone feel better. There are actual kind of things where it makes you think like, how would I get out of this? And they come up with, you're like, that's brilliant. I never would have thought of that before.
Okay.
And with characters you love and unique animation, like stuff you don't see, well, basically, unless you're an anime fan, stuff you don't see every day because there's like, I mean, I just watched an episode where there's a face stealer is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And his face is a no mask from Japanese theater.
Yeah.
Again, with my
Right.
crazy
There's a lot of
obsession.
loves
Yeah.
coming
Well,
in.
I am obsessed with the country of Japan, not just anime, but the actual country and history of Japan. I just love it. And so anytime I can see anything, because there is Kyoshi Island, which is basically Japan. And they have an animal that they call the unagi, which is eel in Japanese. And he's a big giant eel that lives outside of the island. And if you think about it, Kyoshi was one of the avatars, broke the island of Kyoshi off, and they developed their own culture, which is kind of like what happened with Japan. There is Chinese influence, but it then developed into their own thing.
Okay. But then, guys, a couple seasons later, or a couple of years later, I should say, the show ends. They introduce Korra.
Well, this
Legend
gets
of
into
Korra.
my question that I have. And before we maybe get to that, there is a lot of things that we watch that have a greater lore. For example, you hear people say, oh, this is explained better in the books or the comics. Is this a situation where there's other things that I might need to be informed on outside of the show? Or can I
Okay.
simply watch the show and be okay?
For Avatar: The Last Airbender, it did start as a cartoon. So it's not like Japanese anime where a lot of them are based on manga series. But they do have some bridge stuff between The Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender that then connects the two, that kind of then will maybe make Korra make more sense.
And yeah, just to clarify,
these are graphic novels?
So
They are graphic
Legend of Korra
novels.
is the sequel series to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Came out a few years later, as Kim mentioned. And like, yeah, there is a bridge there, and you can there are kind of auxiliary comics that you can read, like other adventures they had.
And there's also a book series that's been recently started that features Kyoshi, which is one of the previous avatars.
But to
So
answer your
prequel
question,
series
Zach,
of sorts.
Yes.
Okay.
to answer your question though, Zach, all the lore,
But
everything
it's
you need,
all in the show.
is self-contained in the
Wonderful.
show. You don't need to go out and read books or anything like that. It's all right there. It's all contained. It's one big story arc. And the thing I love about it is like world building. Like I said, it creates this universe where things I've never thought of before or seen before, and it makes it all kind of believable and logical and makes it enjoyable.
Yeah.
So it's one that you definitely need to check out, I think.
So then Kent was mentioning that a couple of years later, there's another series, a sequel series comes out. It's called The Legend of Korra. Would you put that in sort of, is it a must watch as well? Is it as good? Is it?
All I know is the story of Korra. Korra is the next Avatar.
Okay.
To be honest, I tried to watch Korra and I couldn't. I
really?
just could not get into it.
Not have the same feel
No.
to you? Okay.
They
It
try.
didn't.
They really do try. I watched the first 2 seasons of Legend of Korra.
And it's only like 3 as well, right? Okay.
And I was not into it about halfway through the second season. I was like, I'm not really into this, but I'll keep watching it because my kids are watching it. And then once that season ended, they didn't really care to watch anymore, and I didn't really care to watch anymore. It's missing the same spark, or Sparky Boom Man, if you are an Avatar fan. No, it's missing the same spark.
Zach and I are looking at each other.
Yeah, sure.
But they don't.
Season 3. Or no.
One of the things that
Season 2.
works the best about Avatar Last Airbender is that the core group of characters, as they call themselves, Team Avatar, they all kind of work well together and play well off of each other and all bring something different to the table. And that group is what makes the show awesome.
Okay.
And then Legend of Korra comes along and they don't have Team Avatar, quote unquote. And
Isn't
so,
it basically just kind of her on her own adventure?
kind of, and they bring in friends, but it doesn't have the same chemistry. And so it's not as good of a story. It's not as well told.
Which is why they haven't continued another cartoon series. Maybe.
But
They didn't have the same success.
But Korra was fairly popular.
it was
and
well received.
is kind of a weird, random, couple of asides. So Bacon Council member Nicole D. Hale.
I know her.
Hey.
Spoiler alert, she and I work together, and so we have become friends because of Baconsale. So
Aw.
Baconsale, bringing friends together.
Aw.
That should be a new tagline.
We were actually talking about this the other night. She said she did watch Korra, and she said she enjoyed it up until the very end. And she said the ending ruined it for her.
Okay.
And so she was rather disappointed in how it ended because it was kind of a surprise ending that you didn't see coming, but it wasn't like a fun surprise. She just said it wasn't expected, and it was just like, what the heck?
Where's the comparison of The Last Airbender is the ending pays off for
Yes.
everything.
Totally.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Honestly, this is good news for me because I was a little bit overwhelmed thinking that I would have to watch Avatar and watch another series. So if
No.
I can just digest this one show, that's actually good news for me.
Yeah.
And then if you want to watch The Legend of Korra, hey, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, if you
There
like it,
are
that's
people
fine.
that like it. It's not for me.
Not for
but
me either. I did want to bring up, too, that apparently, I hate this. I hate this so much. Nickelodeon has decided that they're going to do a live action series based on Avatar The Last Airbender. So even though you have this perfect 3-season series that just was exactly what it needed to be, Netflix and Nickelodeon have decided they're going to reboot it as a live action series.
And that's the series that I thought was premiering here within the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh crap, do I have to watch this now too?
Are we saying same story and everything?
It sounds like it.
Most likely.
I mean, it may be like a Final Fantasy VII thing, Kent, where they change some elements to keep people interested.
Right.
So I do have a question for you guys, and for you listener at home as well. I want to ask you, Zach.
Yeah.
If you could control one of those elements, meaning, and kind of how we've explained it, air.
Well,
earth.
we actually took quizzes.
Well, hold on. I want to get preference first. But if you could choose one of those, if you could manipulate air or earth or water or fire in the way that the show portrays it, not that you've seen the show, but just
based on what I've
explained,
heard.
what would you choose?
Air.
You choose airbender.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think it sounds cool.
That's good enough.
Yeah, that's all I need. I don't need to move Earth.
Least practical, but air.
You choose air as well?
Power of flight.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even though teleportation's better.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a teleporter in the room.
Chris, what would you choose if you could choose one of the bendings?
I'd be a waterbender.
A waterbender. Why is
Yes. Well, you could create ice on demand. So you could constant parties, and if you run out of ice, hey, here we go. No, but they also not only have the ability to do things with water, they also have the ability to heal.
that? They do have a kind of a healing
That's true.
ability.
And so being able to, like Sokka says, hey, what happened? Why didn't you heal my fish hook in my thumb? And you didn't heal me then. Hey, scrape your knee,
Yeah.
get in a car accident.
Heal
hey,
up.
my back hurts. There you go.
And you could get in bubbles underwater and explore underwater too.
Yes.
Which is cool
And see, I'd choose earthbending.
because it's practical.
Well, it is very practical. And even just like, I love the idea of not being afraid of heights because I could just airbend.
Right.
But being able to earthbend, like when they're just like kind of plowing through a mountain, like digging a tunnel through a mountain, I'm just like, that is so cool. Or when there's a part where a character just kind of builds a shelter around themselves, just like they put up 2 walls around them. And it's a very kind of like, I don't know. I just always like
It's very practical.
It's very practical. It's very kind of powerful. And I kind of like that idea.
Such a Joel answer.
But what?
So we took quizzes.
So Chris sent us a quiz.
We can actually put this link online for all you guys as well.
And just
Totally.
be prepared. It can take a little while.
It's like
And
30 questions.
32.
Joel was very introspective while taking
Well,
it.
because it's like, do you feel happy, or do you feel introspective, or do you feel thoughtful, or do you feel insightful? And I'm like,
And the quiz was
What?
very much
Similar.
a personality based test.
but then it's like, what makes you feel the best about yourself? What is a quality you don't like about yourself? And I was like, man, I did not expect to get this introspective right before recording the
cried.
episode. Yeah, but
Been
you
a crazy
cry, you
time.
cry before every episode of
Every
Baconsale.
quiz, I cry. So, Kris, I would like you to predict what we got on our answers.
Okay.
And also give you what you got as well.
And this is, for those of you who don't know the show, this is very similar to kind of the Harry Potter house quiz, where there are 4 distinct groups with personalities and associations that come with them.
Yes.
And of course, I was very disappointed to find out I was a Gryffindor. So there you go.
Gryffindor.
Boo.
But in just listening to the show, I don't know Zach well enough, so
It's fine.
I would maybe say that you're probably an airbender because there is a sense of whimsy about you.
Okay.
Because I have listened to Adventurers Out There.
Da-da-da.
So the Disney kind of gives you that whimsy.
Disney
I
Adventure
also
Park.com.
would put Joel in the airbender category because of your comedy.
Okay.
And Kent is a firebender.
just because I'm a Slytherin.
And of course, Jacob. Initially, I was thinking he was maybe Earth Kingdom, just because he seems to be very practical. But in just especially some of these later episodes before he went on paternity leave, he was kind of very sociopathic and sadistic. And I'm like, I'm thinking Jacob's a Fire
Oh, you're going to put
Nation as
me in
well.
the same house with Jake?
Yep.
That's messed up.
Makes sense.
Well, Jake's awesome too.
Well,
All right, so let's reveal our quiz answers.
let me tell you, Kris, you're dead wrong because
I
I am a waterbender.
Whoa.
Yes, I'm whimsical and
what is this?
passionate.
Did you have the thing up what it says?
I'm just making it up. Congratulations, you're a member of the Water Tribe. The people of the Water Tribe pride themselves on being loving, kind-hearted, and authentic. They want their lives to be self-actualized and have meaning. This is so long, by the way.
You didn't have to read the whole thing, but just read
But
the
they
highlights.
seek to reform the world and to romanticize their experiences and lives. That's very much me. And then also the experience of lives of others.
And what percentage did you reach on that one?
Yeah, it's
82%.
that's pretty high. What was your next highest one, though? Do you have a Fire Nation pretty high?
Air Nomad.
What?
Yeah.
At what percent?
Fire was my last one.
Oh.
By the by.
What was the percentage of your second place?
Quarantine has changed
50%.
Okay.
well, and I was just going to say, because I didn't reveal mine at the end, but, or do you want to wait?
I'm just saying I cry all the time now, so that's why I'm a waterbender.
Yeah.
These tears, they're
Kris, we'll end on you,
Okay.
okay? So
So
I'll go
Joel?
next. You are spot on. I'm an airbender. I'm an air nomad. It says, congratulations, you're the air nomad. And I want to read here. At their best, they are amusing, animated, charming, cheerful, entertaining, enthusiastic, expressive, funny, friendly, funny, generous. I almost said gorgeous there. Well,
Well, yeah.
Oh my
and then it says at their
gosh.
worst, they can be brassy, careless, cynical, egotistical, exaggerating, flighty, forgetful, haphazard, and so on and so forth. So I'll take it. My next one, by the way, that was 84% air nomad. I was 81% earth. So I was
Oh,
close.
wow.
Oh, that's really close.
Wow. So I scored at 81%. I aligned with pride themselves on being unconventional, bold, and spontaneous. I'm a native of the air nomads.
Hey, air nomads. Air 5.
Lucky.
Yes. So I at 81% scored the air nomads. My second was the water tribe at 49%. So
You're really an air nomad then.
yep.
Well, it looks like Kent and I belong in the same tribe.
You're both
so
Irish.
Water 5.
Water
because
5.
I am
What's
member
a
of the
water
tribe.
5?
It's a wave when you do that in the water.
It's like the water slaps.
And then my second was I was Earth Kingdom,
Nice.
Oh, wow.
but I don't remember the percentages. So.
No Fire Nation at the table. Interesting.
Probably for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jake's not here. All right, so I would like you guys, since you are the ones proselytizing the message of Avatar: The Last Airbender, to give your final thoughts, your final testimonies as to why people should watch this show. You got another minute with the guy in the elevator.
Wow.
Give him a final reason.
Been a
I know
long
he's
ride.
it's
Sorry,
been
dude.
a long ride.
I think this elevator is going to go up in just a minute. We'll get there soon.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't initially going to come up here, but the feelings are very strong, and I just feel like I really need to do it.
I would
So-
indeed be ungrateful.
Sorry. Don't let the anime look deceive you.
And you're saying that as a lover of anime.
Yes. But initially, I went into it not being a lover of anime because I had forgotten my anime loving roots.
Yeah.
But give it a chance because just because it looks different from what you're used to doesn't mean that it's not going to feel unfamiliar. The
That feels like a
storytelling,
life lesson almost.
the storytelling is what you're familiar with. Okay, the martial arts may be different. Some of the lore may look a little bit different, but it may get you into maybe looking eastward, because when we learn things in history, we always focus on Europe. And then when it comes time to learn about the other side of the world, there's just not enough time left in the school year. So maybe learn a little bit about China and Japan, Indonesia. But there are some feelings of Mesoamerica in there. Hey, there might even be Inuit culture involved. They live in the state of Alaska, so give them a chance too. It's interesting. It's fun. It's funny. And it may seem a little silly at the beginning, but give it a chance because it will hook you, throw you loops, not be predictable at all. The ending is because it's a kid's show, so it has to end on a good note. But enjoy it. It's good stuff.
So say we all.
So say we all.
Amen.
Mine, I'm just going to say there are many TV shows that I enjoy. Many. And I've talked about many of them on this show. I enjoy Lost, Breaking Bad, Arrested Development, Community. I'm thinking of all these just different shows that I can think of off the top of my head. I enjoy a lot of TV shows, but there are reasons that I can't recommend them to one person or another person. I don't know if certain people will like this, or maybe the content's a little too dark. And so I have a hard time recommending certain shows to certain people. However, I can recommend Avatar: The Last Airbender to anybody because it's one of those shows that I feel will have universal appeal if you give it a chance. It is funny. It is engaging. It is dramatic. The action scenes are very well done. The fight scenes are so much fun to watch. The war scenes are intense. It has everything I want in a TV show, and it is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And I recommend that you give it a shot. Please. It's on Netflix. Super easy to watch. Barely an inconvenience.
Okay. Big words.
Yeah.
There we go.
So there you go.
Wow.
There's my testimony of it.
Wow.
Ken, do you want to add anything in there since you have seen it? Anything we left out?
I love animated series, but generally they don't have a beginning or an ending. If you look at Batman the Animated Series or X-Men, there's no complete story there. This is the only cartoon I've seen with a full story arc that pays off in the end. Stay till the end and it will be completely worth it.
There we go.
That's it.
So have we convinced you? Zach, have we convinced you to watch at least 2 episodes of the show?
This was a long elevator ride, and it went on quite a journey. But yeah, I think so. I think it sounds interesting. It sounds more approachable than I thought it might have been. So yeah, I think we'll give it a shot.
Cool. Let us know if you're going to give it a shot on our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter pages. We would love to hear from you. If you've seen it, join in the chorus of recommendation. And if you haven't, let us know, when you do watch it, because obviously you're going to after listening to this episode, let us know what you think, because we love hearing about that.
Now, before we go, we'd like to thank our patrons. From the I Am the Listener category, we have Terry Finley, Stephen Ross, Adrian Gray, Chris Strout, Braden Winterton, Colton Cook, Jennifer Kielkowski, Sean Sandquist, Just Kyler Now, Alicia Bass, and Crew Dutler. And from the Bacon Council, we have Nicole D. Hale, Ryan Farron, Reverse Listener, and Chris Anderson.
Chris Anderson! And make sure to leave us a review on iTunes. We are so close to crossing 100 reviews. We have more ratings, but reviews, we're so close. Give us a review on iTunes and just push us over that edge, please.
Nice.
But if you want to find me, you can find me at 76Joel on Twitter, or you can find me performing with Quick Wits. They still perform online, but hopefully we can perform in the theater soon. For more details, go to the Quick Wits Facebook page.
If you want to find me on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Kenny3DD. If you want to read my movie reviews, especially in July, you can find it at ShowtimeShowdown.com.
And if you want to connect with me on social media, it's at Tumbling Mustard on Twitter and Instagram. But more importantly, make sure you're following Baconsale on social media. Of course, the Facebook page. Go and give that a like. And then on Instagram and Twitter as well, at Baconsale. There's a fun community about and a bunch of fun comments. I always love going on there on, after show releases and things like that and seeing what people have to say.
Yeah.
So it's a good time there. Also, make sure that you are getting yourself some Baconsale swag. getting something fun to wear on tpublic.com/baconsale. Again, get yourself a Super Soft t-shirt or something. It's fantastic. And of course, if you want to support the show, if you want to tell the guys they're doing a good job, you can go to patreon.com/baconsale and start supporting the show at just $3 a month. You can hear about all sorts of things, including like what we're watching right now. I'll probably give a little report of my watching of Avatar on Patreon. So once again, patreon.com/baconsale.
So until next time, yip, yip.
You know better.
Do I? Love the show. Hate your guts.
Pure cinematography.
Yeah, not a wimp.
Uh-oh.
So
she
I'll-
said the A word.
Already lost
Sorry.
me. We're done.
I can hear his mouth on the microphone.
Everybody thinks that you're the villain, but it's really Jake.
I know. I know.
Ken shaved his manly beard today.
Kent is a baby face. This show will make you want to hate yourself and want to, punch yourself in the face. You'd be like, I'll watch that.
I watch it 3
But I'm
times
like-
already. This is really lighthearted. I kind of hate it. You don't know me.
Water,
No.
earth,
Fail.
fire.
Fail.
Isn't a platypus inherently a hybrid animal? Because
There
the
were
air could have
no
blown out the
airbenders.
fire.
It
I
could
know
have.
how candles work.
We want to keep it as basic as possible. But
Like Kent. It's the implied genocide?
full Steve Rogers here.
He's clumsy, guys. He fell.
Lest you think that it's just Chris and I geeking out on the show. Cut. This is the uncut part when Joel looks for his notes.
Take it easy. Take
Spoilers.
it easy.
Baconsale, bringing friends together.
Elitist over here.
That's me. You know,
I can
watch
respect
me as
that.
I hook my monocle on my eyeball
Indeed.
here.
Oh, you're going to put
As
me in
well.
the same house with Jake?
Yep.
That's messed up.
Makes sense.
You want to voice your pleasure for the show or your
pain.
Your pleasure for the show.
Uncut.
uncut show?
Is that a nudity? Is that what we're going on with here?
I think you got to be a bro to be a brony.